Maris Quinn was sketching a cantilevered overhang for a client's lake house when the phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, local, but sterile. She almost didn't answer. "This is Maris Quinn," she said, still half-focused on the elevation lines. "Ms. Quinn, this is Principal Hastings from St. Hilaria Academy." The voice came formal and unyielding. "I'm calling about your daughter." Maris set her pencil down, confused. "I'm sorry, who?" "Your daughter, Rhea Vexley. She's been expelled this morning, truancy, assault against another student. We've left multiple messages." Maris blinked slowly. "You've made a mistake. I don't have a daughter." There was a pause. Paper rustled. "I'm looking at her enrollment file now. Your name and signature are on every document. Emergency contact. Custodial parent." The air shifted. Maris leaned back in her chair, a numbness crawling over her spine. "Is this some kind of identity theft? We need you here." Immediately, Principal Hastings said, the final word clipped like a verdict. Maris stared at the silent phone screen after the call ended, a half-beat too long. For a woman who spent her life building clean, elegant solutions out of chaos, this didn't fit. Her world had no room for impossibilities. Have you ever gotten a call that turned your life upside down in seconds? St. Hilaria Academy stood like a fortress, a monument to elite discipline tucked behind hedges too perfect to be natural. As Maris entered, the security guard barely glanced at her ID before motioning her toward the admin wing. Principal Hastings greeted her with a firm handshake and no smile. He led her into the dean's office without another word. Rhea sat in the corner, slouched low, arms crossed, a scabbed eyebrow arched with indifference. She didn't look up until Maris was fully inside. Their eyes locked. Identical. Same shape, same subtle tilt, same storm gray irises. "Well, this is awkward," Rhea muttered. "Playing dumb, huh? That tracks." Maris blinked again. Her mouth opened, then closed. I've never seen her before." Principal Hastings slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a birth certificate. Rhea Vexley. Mother, Maris Quinn. "That's not," Maris stammered. "You signed this," the principal said flatly. Somewhere in her skull, a scream uncoiled. A flicker. Hospital lights. A smell like antiseptic. Straps. A hand clutching hers, not warmly. Pain. A doctor's voice, distorted, warbling, distant. She couldn't place it. Rhea stood abruptly. "I knew this was a waste of time." She pushed past Maris and slammed the door behind her. "If someone claimed to be your child and looked just like you, what would you do?" The sun had dipped into dusk by the time Maris drove home. The road ahead was a blur of brake lights and motion. She wasn't sure how long she'd been driving. She only knew she hadn't turned on the radio. Her mind was too loud. A prank? A scam? Someone trying to mess with her for money? But then that girl's eyes. Her mother's voice surfaced from the deep. "You're not built for motherhood. Some women just aren't." Maris's hands clenched the wheel tighter. "I've always built my life on precision. But nothing about today fits." A flash of red brake lights, too late. She swerved. The car jumped the divider, tires screeching. The impact jarred her spine, and silence fell, except for the ticking of a bent blinker. As she caught her breath, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. "You don't remember, do you?" No name. No reply field. Ever had a truth that didn't match your memory? The emergency room was sterile and overlit. Maris sat on a narrow bed with an ice pack balanced on her shoulder. Minor whiplash, nothing broken. A nurse approached with a clipboard. "This was dropped off for you earlier," she said. "Guy in a hoodie. Wouldn't leave his name." She handed over a thick envelope. Inside, a photo. A newborn swaddled in blue hospital cloth, a tiny wristband tagged Baby Quinn. There was something in the baby's face, something terrifyingly familiar. Behind the photo, a folded sheet of paper. The cursive handwriting, looped and elegant, made her stomach drop. "Forgive me. You deserved to know." She knew that handwriting. Every G curled like a treble clef. It belonged to only one person. "Mom," Maris whispered. "What did you do? What would you do if your past came back in a single photo?" Her home was silent, cloaked in shadows. Maris tossed her bloodied coat on the arm of the couch and opened her laptop. Fingers moved fast. She searched her own name. Her tax records. Her medical files. Nothing about a child. Then she dug deeper. An old login, access from her ex-boyfriend Scott, who used to work in hospital IT. She entered the maternity ward database. Her fingers hovered. Search, Maris Quinn, maternity records, past 20 years. Enter. The screen flashed. Access denied. Then again. Record deleted. Her breath caught. She tried another login. Same result. She stared at the blinking cursor. Then she slammed the laptop shut. They erased me. If your name disappeared from your own past, who would you blame first? Caswin's office smelled like lemon polish and old paper. It was the kind of place where nothing ever happened quickly, except for the silence that fell when Maris slid the birth certificate across the desk. Cass picked it up delicately, as though it might bite. "This is official," she murmured, tracing a finger along the embossed seal. "But not recent. Someone went through a lot of trouble to make it look clean." Maris folded her arms, staring hard. "It has my name on it." Cass pulled out a magnifying glass, adjusting her glasses. "And here's the kicker, Claudia Vexley. Guardian. Legal custodian. Your sister." The words landed heavy between them. Cass leaned back. "Maris, this won't go away by ignoring it. You could file a petition. Challenge custody. But this? It's a storm." Maris didn't blink. "Then I'm walking into it." Cass frowned. "You know I have to advise against confronting her directly." Maris stood. "She stole my daughter. 14 years of silence wasn't enough to earn that privilege." Outside, the weight of her own name on a forged document pressed into her spine. Claudia Vexley. The one person she trusted most, until the day she disappeared from her life without explanation. And now, her signature sat there, bold as betrayal. Would you confront someone who stole your child, or go through the courts? Claudia's estate sat on the far edge of the city, where the gated fences whispered money and the flower beds were too perfect. Maris didn't knock. She simply waited after ringing the bell, heart thudding like a war drum. Claudia opened the door, dressed like she'd been expecting company, calm, composed, silk blouse crisp. "Maris," she said lightly, "what a surprise." "Coffee?" Maris stepped inside, uninvited. The house hadn't changed. Marble floors, clean lines, too cold for comfort. Claudia led her into the sunroom, poured 2 cups with robotic elegance. Why? Maris asked. Why would you do this? Claudia set the cups down. Do what? Maris flung the birth certificate onto the table. This. You made me a ghost. You took my child. Claudia barely blinked. You were unwell. I was exhausted. Grieving. That's not the same as unstable. Claudia's tone softened, unnervingly maternal. You don't remember much from that time. The hospital. The crying. The breakdowns. Maris leaned in. You forged records. That's kidnapping. Claudia's smile was faint, controlled. I saved her. From you. The room tilted. The sun outside felt colder now. Claudia added, almost lazily, you think a judge will take your word over mine? There are records. Doctors. Notes. You were barely functioning. Maris stood. You have no idea what I remember. Claudia followed her to the door. You're already losing her again. Maris's hands trembled, but her voice stayed level. Next time, I won't knock. If your own sister betrayed you, could you ever trust family again? St. Hilaire's sidewalk was still wet with dew the next morning. Maris stood across the street, waiting. Ria appeared from the school gates, earbuds in, hoodie pulled up. Maris approached slowly, hands visible, heart in her throat. Hey. Can we talk? Ria pulled one bud out, stared. You again? Maris hesitated. I don't know what they've told you. But I'm not here to force anything. I just want answers. Maybe we both do. Ria scoffed. Where the hell were you? Maris inhaled. I didn't know you existed. Until last week. That's convenient. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just a DNA test. Something concrete. Ria looked away. You don't get to come back like nothing happened. Then Maris saw them, faint bruises, just above Ria's wrist. Her voice softened. Who did that to you? Ria pulled her sleeve down. Don't pretend to care now. She turned and walked off without looking back. Maris stood rooted, guilt and rage mixing like oil and fire. What would you say to a child who believes you abandoned them? Maris unlocked her apartment and immediately felt it, wrongness. The door had been closed, but not latched. She stepped inside. Nothing looked out of place. Not exactly. But her laptop sat open, screen black. She powered it on. Blank. All files gone. Her stomach flipped. She called Cass. Someone wiped my system. Cass swore under her breath. They're watching. I pulled some court records. Claudia submitted documentation about a past psychiatric evaluation. You were hospitalized for exhaustion. I never consented to that. Cass paused. Then someone forged medical access. Maris sat down hard. She's painting me as unstable. Again. Cass exhaled. This isn't about guardianship. It's about hiding something much bigger. Maris whispered, she's trying to erase me. All over again. Ever been gaslit by someone close, and had no one believe you? The parking garage was quiet, echoing. Maris approached her car, already exhausted. Then she saw it, yellow envelope on the windshield. No stamp. No name. Inside, a folded sheet of white paper. Typed, center-aligned. Withdraw. Or we'll finish what you forgot. Her pulse pounded. She scanned the lot. Empty. Her fingers trembled, but then her grip tightened. You only threaten what you fear, she murmured. She reached into her purse, pulled out a lighter, and held the flame to the paper. It curled into ash in her palm. When did you decide fear would no longer control your life? The gravel under Maris's tires sounded louder than she remembered. The Quinvexley estate lived untouched by time, immaculate, manicured, soulless. She hadn't been here in over a decade, and yet every stone in the path, every trimmed hedge whispered the same thing: you never belonged. The front door opened before she knocked. Welcome home, Maris, sort of, Hetty said, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Maris stepped in. The grand foyer reeked of lemon oil and old lies. Claudia sat in the sitting room, legs crossed, sipping something dark from a crystal glass. Ria was beside her, eyes avoiding Maris's. The glint of a bracelet Maris had once worn as a teen now circled Ria's wrist. Hetty followed her inside, voice brittle. The Quinn name carries weight. We protect that. I came for truth, not compliments, Maris said. Claudia didn't rise. Truth isn't always yours. The chandelier overhead flickered once. Just enough to feel like a warning. Have you ever walked into a place that used to feel like home and discovered it belonged to someone else? Maris sat on the floor of her apartment, her back against the wall, scattered photo albums open across the rug. Pages blurred by time, and now, clearly edited. Ria's face was in them, but not just inserted. Manipulated. Same lighting, same color balance. Someone had crafted a fiction with surgical precision. Her phone buzzed. Cass's voice was clipped. I pulled those hospital logs. There's a record from 2009. Baby Quinn admitted but under Hetty's social. Maris blinked. That's identity theft. More like legacy control. They used her status to erase your name from the chain. Maris texted Ria, you deserve truth. The message stayed unread. A memory crashed into her, 2009, a summer fair. She'd told Hetty she was pregnant. Hetty's smile then, tight, joyless. A Quinn doesn't raise bastards. Cass's voice cut in again. This isn't just about you, Maris. It's about decades of control. Claudia and Hetty may have orchestrated this from the start. Maris looked at the altered photos again. Lies passed down like heirlooms. If someone stole your identity to rewrite your life story, how far would you go to reclaim it? The restaurant was too polished, too public. Exactly Hetty's style. Maris arrived on time. Ria was already seated, eyes darting between her water glass and Claudia. Hetty offered a smile too white, too wide. We're family, she began. Let's act like it. Maris leaned forward. Why is my name absent from every legal form in 2009? Claudia sipped her wine. You weren't well. I was drugged. You made sure of it. Ria stood abruptly. If you were my mother, you'd have shown up. You would have fought. Maris stood too. I didn't even know you existed until 2 weeks ago. Hetty slammed her knife down, the clang silencing nearby tables. Get a grip, girl. Patrons stared. Claudia reached for Ria's hand. You're making this harder for all of us. Maris's voice shook, but she didn't back down. Not harder for me. I buried truth so you could bury me. The table froze. Rhea pushed her chair back and stormed out. Hetty said nothing. Claudia's hands trembled slightly as she picked up her napkin. Have you ever revealed the truth at the worst possible moment and hoped it would set you free? The next morning, Maris sat with Cass, envelope in hand. Inside were photos, Claudia and Rhea in private moments. But it wasn't the images that mattered. It was the bank transfers highlighted beside them. Quinn Trust Fund, beneficiary, Rhea Vexley. Cass frowned. This came from someone inside the estate's legal team. Someone wants you to know. Maris's breath caught. Claudia's text followed an hour later. Back off. You'll ruin your career. On her kitchen table, an old newspaper lay open. Quinn Legacy donates to Youth Center. Maris scanned the photo. Claudia, Rhea, Hetty, all smiles under a plaque that read, in memory of what was never lost. They didn't just erase me, Maris whispered. They built a brand on my face. When your family name becomes someone else's shield, what's left for you? Rain pelted the sidewalk. Maris stood under a flickering street lamp, umbrella catching wind like a broken wing. School was letting out. Students scattered like water bugs. Rhea appeared at the edge of the driveway, backpack slung low, hair damp. She looked exhausted. I need your help, Rhea whispered. But I can't go back to that house. Maris reached out, palm open. Then let's leave it behind. Rhea nodded. Headlights cut through the rain. Claudia's car barreled around the corner, tires hissing on wet pavement. The beam of her high beams locked on them. Then, screeching brakes. The car didn't stop. Would you run with someone you've just met, or wait for the one who abandoned you? The hallway of Briarcrest Nursing Home smelled faintly of disinfectant and oatmeal. Maris stepped quietly into the common room, where a frail woman with storm gray hair sat near the window, hands folded tightly in her lap. Alba Marrow. I remember you, Alba said before Maris introduced herself. You look like her but not so bitter. Maris sat across from her, uneasy. Alba slid a sealed envelope across the table. I kept these. Couldn't sleep at night knowing. Inside were black and white photocopies, neonatal files, forms with overwritten sections, and one unmistakable page, Hetty's signature authorizing release of a baby, with Claudia listed as legal guardian. They didn't just hide the truth. They built on it, Maris murmured. Alba nodded. They were careful, but not perfect. You look in the cracks, you find the rot. Maris stood, heart thudding. Thank you. Alba's voice followed as she turned to leave. They'll come for you now. Count on it. Have you ever had someone you trusted quietly confirm your worst suspicion? Rhea looked skeptical when she walked into the cafe, hoodie up, arms crossed. Maris held the envelope on the table between them like it was radioactive. I need you to see this. Slowly, carefully, she spread out the documents. Birth records. A hospital bracelet photo labeled Baby Quinn. Claudia's forged guardian signature. The photo of Maris holding a newborn, eyes tired but glowing. Rhea stared, eyes tracing the edges of the truth she never imagined. All my life they told me you abandoned me. Maris kept her voice low. They made sure you'd believe that. They made sure I couldn't find you. Rhea's lip trembled. She blinked hard, looking away. I used to whisper into my pillow like someone might hear me. Like maybe someone out there cared. Maris reached across the table but didn't touch her. I did. A silence passed between them, aching but real. If this is true, Rhea swallowed. Then I choose you. Would you believe someone who walked away when you needed them most, just because they came back with proof? Claudia slammed the office door shut behind her, rattling the windows. She found the papers, she hissed. Hetty didn't flinch, calmly sipping tea. Time to activate Plan B. That night, Maris returned to her apartment to find the front door ajar. The alarm system had been disarmed. Her filing cabinet emptied. The evidence, gone. Cass's call came before she could even curse. We've got trouble. Claudia's team filed a gag order. They're pushing a case that you had a psychotic break postpartum. Claiming you're unstable. Maris sat on the couch, shaking. They erased my child. Now they're erasing my mind. They're building a case that you're dangerous, Cass warned. Maris opened her laptop. Clicked the live stream software. She uploaded 3 key files: unredacted neonatal logs, the birth certificate draft, the Quinn Trust Fund details. Her finger hovered above the Go Live button. She pressed it. The screen flashed live. My name is Maris Quinn. For years, I've been told I had no daughter. That I was unstable. Today, I show you the truth. She held up the photo, her and newborn Rhea. This was stolen. The viewer count ticked upward. Hundreds. Then thousands. When someone tries to silence your truth, will you whisper or will you roar? Outside the county courthouse, reporters swarmed like hornets. Maris stood beside Cass, documents in hand. Her blazer clung uncomfortably in the southern humidity, but her voice was clear. I wasn't missing. I was erased. A mother should not be invisible. Flashbulbs popped. Claudia appeared, smiling for the cameras, perfectly dressed. Hetty, beside her, wore a mask of resignation. Inside, the bailiff opened the doors. Maris walked forward. That night, headlines blared across local and national feeds: Quinn family scandal, secret child, stolen identity, public outcry. Rhea sat in her room, the glow of her phone lighting her face. She watched her mother's speech on loop, lips parted in disbelief and awe. On Maris's end, she stared at the analytics of her livestream. The QR code embedded in it had been scanned 27,000 times in 3 hours. Truth doesn't just heal, it changes the landscape. Have you ever stood in front of a mirror and realized the person looking back wasn't the one you thought you were? Late that night, the office was quiet. Maris flipped open a dusty folder labeled Quinn Trust Fund. Inside were transaction logs, land deeds, and checks all signed with her name, but forged in Claudia's handwriting. The desk phone rang. She answered. Mom? Rhea's voice was fragile, careful. Maris closed her eyes. Yes. What happens now? She took a breath. Now we build. Miles away, on the estate balcony, Claudia sat with a glass of wine, laptop still open to Maris's livestream. She stared at the frozen frame of Maris's face mid-speech. She closed the laptop softly and whispered, "You haven't won yet. What's your next move when you outsmarted everyone, but the game's only just begun?" The yacht floated under a pale moon, its deck lights glowing soft and deceitful. Claudia greeted them with a smile too smooth to be genuine. Let's go away for just one night, she'd said. And against her instincts, Maris agreed. The air smelled of salt and money, an expensive kind of danger. Rhea stood by the railing, staring out at the dark expanse. For the first time in days, she looked almost peaceful. Claudia handed her a glass of sparkling cider and poured champagne for herself and Maris. To our family, she said, raising her glass, finally together. Maris forced a smile, her gaze drifting to the captain, a stranger who didn't meet her eyes. The music was too low, the laughter too hollow. She bought the scene, Maris thought, but this looks staged. A wave hit the hull. The lights flickered once, twice. Claudia's hand didn't shake when she lifted her drink. "It's been too long," she said, tone syrupy. Rhea raised her glass timidly. "Thank you for coming," she whispered to Maris. Maris nodded, but her stomach churned. She scanned the guest list Claudia had sent earlier. For names, Claudia Vexley, Maris Quinn, Rhea Vexley, and the captain. No crew. No witnesses. Have you ever accepted an invitation that felt too perfect to trust? Claudia excused herself, saying she needed to check on the navigation. Maris watched her disappear into the captain's cabin, her heels tapping rhythmically against the teak floor. Rhea followed quietly, curiosity outweighing fear. They stopped just outside the half-closed door. Inside, Claudia's voice was sharp, urgent. "We'll dock before dawn. 2 passports ready. The girl won't ask questions." Maris's blood ran cold. "She's running," Rhea whispered. "From us." Maris squeezed her arm. "Not this time." She opened her phone under the table's edge, typing one word to Cass, "Now." Cass's reply came seconds later, just a single checkmark, meaning, location tracking activated. Claudia turned, catching them in the doorway. Her expression didn't change. She smiled like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "I knew you'd come," she said. "I thought you'd settle for a check." "I want my daughter," Maris said evenly, "not your hush fund." Claudia laughed softly, but her eyes burned. "You'll never win, Maris. I built an empire on your invisibility. You think one live stream changes that?" Maris took a step closer. "It already has. When someone built their life on your shame, would you collapse or fight back?" Engines rumbled beneath them. The yacht began to move, cutting through black water toward open sea. Rhea gripped the rail, panic in her eyes. "Where are we going?" Maris steadied her. "Stay with me. We decide what happens tonight." The waves grew rougher, wind slicing against the deck. Claudia barked an order to the captain. "Keep going. No signals." But a sound cut through the storm, a distant thump, the whir of blades. A helicopter. Cass's voice burst through Maris's phone earpiece. "Hold your position. Coast Guard's tracking your signal." Claudia turned, fury twisting her face. "You called them?" Maris didn't answer. She raised her phone high. The red light blinked. She was live again. "Everyone watching," she said into the wind, her voice breaking, "this is the truth they tried to drown." She turned the camera toward Claudia, who lunged forward, shouting, "Turn that off." Rhea stepped between them, shaking. "No more lies." The camera caught it all, the chaos, the shouting, the thunder of the sea. Thousands were watching. Would you broadcast your truth if you knew it would shatter someone's world? The live stream counter ticked upward. Comments flooded in, sympathy, disbelief, outrage. Claudia's phone buzzed nonstop, board members, lawyers, donors. She silenced it with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked. "You think this saves you? You've ruined everything." Maris kept filming. "No. I'm saving her." Rhea looked between them, one woman desperate, one finally free. "I can go with you," she said quietly to Claudia, "or I can go home." Claudia froze, caught between love and pride. Maris's voice cut through the storm. Rhea chooses me. For a moment, time held still. Then Claudia turned, storming into the cabin to grab a metal case, their past in paper form. Maris pulled Rhea toward the ladder leading down to the tender. The helicopter's searchlight flooded the deck. The Coast Guard's horn blared from the distance. Mom, Rhea whispered. Maris squeezed her hand. Let's go home. They climbed down as the first wave crashed over the side, soaking them to the bone. Behind them, Claudia screamed something the wind stole away. The yacht spun slightly as engines roared. The tender motor sputtered to life, propellers slicing white foam. When freedom is one decision away, will you take it, or let fear steer the boat? The rain had stopped by the time Maris and Rhea stepped out of the rental car. The house was nothing like the old estate, modest, one level, warm with cedar shingles and an overgrown rose bush by the porch. It didn't whisper legacy or wealth. It simply said, start here. Maris exhaled deeply and turned off her phone. For the first time in weeks, she silenced the noise. No alerts, no press inquiries, no more digital claws pulling at her mind. Just silence. Inside, the air smelled like paint and fresh lumber. Rhea kicked off her shoes and wandered toward the small dining table where Maris had laid out blueprints and craft sticks. I thought we'd design something small, Maris said, motioning to the scale model kit. Just you and me. No rules, no plans, just what feels right. Rhea nodded, eyes soft. She picked up a pencil and drew the first line. Is the place you call home built by someone else's blueprint, or by your own hands? The news hadn't gone away. Headlines still flashed. Quinn scandal widens, daughter returned to birth mother after legal battle. Maris scrolled past them on a quiet afternoon while sipping tea from a chipped mug. A knock at the door, Cass, holding 2 coffees and a smile. It's easier to face courtrooms than silence, huh? Maris gestured her in, pulling a worn envelope from the shelf. Inside was a letter she hadn't shared before, her father's handwriting. She read aloud, if you've been erased, then redraw your own map. She set the letter into a small wooden frame beside a model of a building she designed long ago but never built. Rhea entered the room and paused. You okay? Maris met her gaze. I always built buildings. Now I'm rebuilding us. Cass squeezed her shoulder. Legal victory is one thing. Living the truth every day is another. When you win the battle, what does the peace feel like? 3 weeks later, a banner hung over a downtown community center, Quinn Mothers Foundation, launch day. The small crowd was mostly women, some in tears, others taking notes. Maris stood at the podium, her voice even. They stole my role as mother, but they didn't steal my voice. And now, I lend it to you. Rhea sat in the front row, quiet pride radiating from her eyes. Maris motioned her up. This is my daughter, and the reason I didn't quit. Rhea joined her, nervous but grounded. In the back stood a figure in gray, heady. No applause, no words. Just presence. Later, in a hallway behind the center, Hetty and Maris stood face to face. I was scared, Hetty whispered. Maris didn't blink. Fear built cages. Now we unlock the doors. Who planted the barriers in your life, and how will you dismantle them? That evening, the Portland skyline stretched before them in sharp edges and soft light. Maris and Rhea stood on the rooftop of their new home, bundled in hoodies, wind whispering through their hair. In Rhea's hands rested the architectural model they'd built, quirky, imbalanced, imperfect, but theirs. If everything's back to normal, Rhea asked, what happens next? Maris looked out at the city, then down at her daughter. Normal was never the goal. Freedom is. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Cass, foundation meeting tomorrow, your vision requested. She turned the screen off without reading more. Maris took Ria's hand and squeezed it. Let's rebuild more than just walls. What will you build when you reclaim your foundation?